You're elected, you're sworn in on New Year's Day 2010. What's the first specific thing you need to do when you get back to your office that day?
Stop the bleeding. I'll freeze all non-essential spending, and we'll begin to go through immediately where we can cut spending, where we can consolidate services, where we can eliminate spending and services, where we can begin to do the heavy work that they've avoided for 6.5 years.
A little bit of background. You've been doing, obviously, the law enforcement thing, the public service thing for a lot of years. You mentioned that in all that time, and you look at it going forward, you're in 2009 now, and you look back on all those years of public service. Mm-hmm. Is there any specific thing that you look at and you know that that's prepared you specifically to be governor?
Well, actually a couple things. Leading a large organization like I do with 1,200 plus people that deals literally in life and death situations has prepared me mentally and emotionally to make tough calls in sometimes literally life and death situations, and to allocate resources based on what I can do to save lives. And so when you're dealing with things that are saving money, it's not quite on the same emotional or dramatic scale as saving lives. So, you know, I'm used to making tough decisions, both organizationally and in terms of the outcome of the decision. Secondly, when I was in the state senate in the early 1990s, we had to make a host of those kinds of decisions. At the time, Michigan's budget was way out of whack, huge deficit. Businesses were leaving the state. John Engler had just become governor, and I was one of the majority senators that helped turn the state in a different direction. When I left the Senate, we had a budget surplus, a substantial amount of money in the rainy day fund. We had cut taxes years running, always balanced the budget, and we were ranked one of the best states in America to come and start a business. And today, as I sit here, everything else is the opposite. We have no money left in the rainy day fund. We can't even borrow any more money without changing the law. We've drained all the equity out of almost every account, and businesses are fleeing our state at an astounding rate, and we lead the nation in outbound moves. So it's gone from being on top of the world to being on the bottom of every indicator we need to fix. And so I think the experience of having lived through problematic times and been part of the solution in the past, and also having led an organization through some very difficult times and making tough decisions and knowing what's the difference between a need and a want. And that's a very clear difference. We all want a lot of things, but in these tough times we have to focus on the needs and what is actually necessary at this moment in time to fulfill the mission of government. And that has to be a very different picture than what they're doing now.
2006 was a rough year for all of us.
Right.
I was just a staffer on the DeVos campaign, and that thing, I mean, I took it really hard. And you actually lived it. I mean, you were there, you did the thing, eventually falling to Debbie Stabenow in the Senate race. You look back on that, what did that teach you? What did the whole experience teach you? What can you bring now into the 2010 race that you learned in 2006? Well,
it taught me how a statewide race obviously works. It helped me build a great group of friends. We met people all across the state, learned about the issues and the challenges they were facing. I knew going into that beating an incumbent U.S. senator is almost statistically an impossibility unless the whole wave is coming in your direction. Party and politics in power in Washington in the off-election year usually loses. So in that particular, Republicans were in charge in Washington, which means even more avalanche effect. So I knew all that going in, but I thought it was important to take up the banner and to talk about the issues of why we needed change in Washington at the time and the issues that weren't being addressed that I still don't think to this day have been addressed. In fact, they've gotten worse. We still haven't secured our borders. We're spending money even in a worse fashion. I mean, we're compiling a national debt that is second to no other country in the history of my recollection, and I think that debt's going to be on our kids and our grandkids for times to come. So I felt it was important to argue those points publicly, to debate them, and to make sure that people understood what was happening in Washington then and what is happening obviously even worse now. And I'm proud that we were able to do that and have those discussions, and I think time has proven us right that had they changed some of those paths, we wouldn't be where we are today, which is even worse. So I was honored to have the nomination of the party to run statewide, and I think that's been a great possibility of moving into this next step of having that all in my background. both in terms of running statewide, having the experience to make the difference on day one, and having all those friends that I've met across the state to come together and make this moment in time work.
Right. Do you mind if we just run through a few other issues, just rapid fire?
Sure.
Where are you on the Second Amendment?
Second Amendment is something I believe strongly in. Always been supported by the NRA and other folks. You know, I'm a police officer by trade. I've been in law enforcement for 23 years. We have enough laws in the books as it relates to weapon crimes, and the only ones that follow the laws are the law-abiding citizens. So if you outlaw guns, the only people that will have them will be criminals. And time again, that's been shown statistically, it's quantifiable. Look at Washington, D.C. They had one of the most regimented, strict anti-gun laws in America, and they still had one of the worst crime rates in America. So there's absolutely no correlation between banning guns and seeing crime fall.
And the right to life?
Right to life, pro-life. I've been a pro-life legislator. I have a record of it in all of my votes in Lansing, always endorsed by Right to Life.